history I guess I could give with the pop-up union was trying to get in touch with the Wobblies, which I can't remember the official name.
Industrial Works of the World.
Thank you. So we tried to get in touch with them because there's been a lot of initiatives, similar initiatives in the US that we'd heard about, which have been more or less successful. So people got in touch with the Wobblies, but they didn't want to help the process at Sussex. They didn't think it was possible, so it was done completely independently. So it was just about basically getting information from lawyers who offered help that we knew would be sympathetic. And just a very basic, we've got a 50p per month membership. We're completely horizontal. We have a treasurer, and a hardship fund set up with I think £800 at the minute that we've collected throughout the campaign. To be more precise in terms of the actual ballot, and so we entered a trade dispute last week, and we have 3 demands. The first one is the halting of the outsourcing process, the bidding process. Second one is a commission of staff and lecturers to reassess the accountability of managers of management at Sussex. And also third point on the end of the intimidation of staff, which has been ongoing throughout the campaign. So that's our 3 demands. There's been communication between the head of human resources, Jane Summerfield, which has not been the nicest of characters throughout the campaign, it has to be said. And the secretary, I guess, of the pop-up union. And so they've refused to recognise, obviously, our status, even though we are certified now. But they're obviously not acknowledging or registering us at all as recognised on campus. I mean, there are a lot of difficulties, obviously, with this, which we're widely aware. Social networking is great for producing information, for publicising issues, but it's also a difficult space, and I know officers of the existing trade unions, so UCU, Unite, and Unison on Sussex campus have had a tough time, and it's a problem with Twitter and all these other things where a lot of things are said, and it's not the best place to try and start a very community and unifying process between the pop-up union and the other unions. And I've been engaged in these discussions as well on Facebook, and it's not easy. And it's also about making sense of the frustration of members from the existing unions and why they feel that they are going with the pop-up union, and trying to understand their frustration. Is it an institutional problem, or is it personal issues at different layers? And it's just, we're trying to stay away from that and just try and say, look, so members of the pop-up union can still be members of the existing unions. We obviously completely push and encourage pop-up union members to stay or to keep or take membership with the existing unions. And we're really just a single issue outsourcing Sussex union. So a lot of obstacles, obviously there, lack of obviously strong legal support, and we're not too sure how things are going to turn out. But there's a lot of advantages in terms of everybody is involved. It's very horizontal, it's very cheap, and it is putting pressure. So, as I said, any advice more than welcome.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I feel that qualified to even talk about from the discussion, because it's been really interesting, is this idea of modes of resistance and how, I guess, as has been mentioned with Maia, and sort of the pop-up union and where that slots in. I think from what I'm seeing at the moment, I mean, I went to the NUS conference where I spoke a few times. I think it was April. I can't remember. It wasn't very exciting, and I had to sit and listen to these what I can only describe as careerists standing up and saying that we can't have a free education policy as a national union of students because it's going to end up disadvantaging the poor. And I mean, I mean, I was dumbfounded because I know that in some kind of policy frameworks you talk about the taxation, but it was, to me it was, I'm a student. And the NUS, for instance, is a body of representatives for students as a union, or what it should be, and there was also dialogue of whether the National Union of Students should even be considered a union anymore rather than just an organisation. And it was also bizarre to me. But I mean, I think this is the whole idea, is that what we've got is, and with the pop-up union especially, it's not that debatable that we need to just walk away from all the traditional modes of resistance and modes of organisation. It's that at the moment they're failing us. The NUS is failing its student body. I mean, when we went into occupation, there was a huge amount of support from across the country in terms of the student body. But it was only after the president, for instance, of the NUS had seen the popular support from Labour politicians, from kind of wider society, that he was willing to put his name to anything, and I had to send him quite an angry email demanding he did certain things until he'd even do it because he felt like he had to. And I think that's the problem, is that the organisational structures that exist, and I think the same from what we've experienced at Sussex, trade unions have become so part of the system that exists, part of the policy framework. And it even sounds like, from listening to people speaking on the floor, that the Labour Party is in the same way, for instance, with education policy, is failing to really live up to the needs of what people want. And I think the more and more, as Maia said, we organise aside and outside of those frameworks, and we continue to push with alternative modes of organisation, alternative protest, alternative actions, it has two only positive outcomes, and the same with the pop-up union. The first is that we encourage the bodies that exist already to really reflect on themselves and see what they're doing, to really step back for a second and go, hold on, maybe we have got scope here to demand free education or stand up truly for what the staff or the workers we're supposedly meant to be representing want. The other option is that we just have to move away from those bodies and change the way we function. The trade union as it stands has existed for a long time, but it's become more and more embedded in the status quo of the kind of neoliberal policies that have been ascending onto the country. It may very well be we need to just step back and start again and change our mode of resistance to more horizontally organised actions. And I don't think either of those things independently will work at the moment, but I think pursuing both avenues of trying to change the structures that exist and starting off again is our best bet of trying to ensure that the future is set to be slightly more sustainable.